Alright, YouTube, so we're back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII, sort of. What we have today is we have somewhat of an update for Summer Game Fest, kind of a weird update coming directly from Geoff Keighley, who, of course, runs every goddamn game event that ever happens anymore, it seems like. So what we have is he was doing a Twitter space thing, which these are like, you can like live stream on Twitter, I think is kind of what it is. I don't know if it's audio only, if there's video versions of it, but he was doing like an audio session, as the VGC calls it. As you can tell, I have no idea what Twitter Spaces are. Obviously, I see people doing this shit all the time on my feed, but I've never clicked on it, never participated in it, because I'm an old man these days. I just don't give a shit. I don't have social media because I kind of have to for YouTube. Anyways, he's doing one of these and kind of hyping up Summer Game Fest, talking about it or whatever. But then, at the exact same time, during this Twitter Space session thing that he was doing, he kind of killed a little bit of hype for the event because he was saying that people need to manage their expectations, and that essentially the event's going to be about, showing and talking about games that have already been revealed. Now, VGC does a pretty good job of transcribing like pretty much everything that he said during this, but we're obviously just going to read the important part. So he says, what I would say is that a lot of the games we're going to show you are going to be already announced. Games are going to show new content to you, like some of the ones I've mentioned. We've got a couple of new game announcements in the show, and hopefully some surprises if everything holds, but it definitely is a show that's primarily focused on stuff that is announced. He added, so we're doing some good stuff for you, but definitely manage your expectations in terms of the megaton shocks that you're expecting. This is not the Game Awards. We got lots of good stuff to show you, but buyer beware of some of the crazy rumors I'm seeing out there in terms of things people expect to get announced. Now, obviously, this has some people out there a bit worried, because as it pertains to us here on the channel, we're hoping and praying and expecting, to some degree, Remake Part 2. Now, if it doesn't happen, I don't think a lot of us are going to feel that burned by that, because we expect the information sometime this year. It doesn't have to be Summer Game Fest. There is the Game Awards, as he mentioned. There's also Tokyo Game Show, and who knows what other things out there Square Enix presents at some point. Potentially another PlayStation State of Play if they wanted to do that. There's plenty of other locations and places that they could talk about Remake, right? It doesn't have to be Summer Game Fest. Plus, we know that there's going to be other FF7 stuff probably shown here for the 25th anniversary. If it's not going to be here, I don't know where else it would be. And Square Enix tends to be the kind of company that doesn't want to do a lot of massive reveals side by side, right? So if they were to show something for Remake Part 2 and then other FF7 projects, at least in their minds from what we've seen in the past, they would think that that would overshadow those other things. So there's a good chance that whatever these other 25th anniversary announcements are, they wouldn't want Remake Part 2 to kind of overshadow that. Now, me personally, as a Final Fantasy VII fan, nothing's really going to overshadow anything, because I want it all. I want everything FF7, so if you show me Ever Crisis, some other new projects, Remake Part 2, an FF7 Remake anime, I'm going to consume all of that media. So there's no overshadowing anything, but that's at least with a track record what they seem to think. Here's the thing, when it comes to the quotes that we just read from Geoff Keighley, he talks about this game event is going to be mostly for the games that have already been announced, and for a lot of people that means no Remake Part 2. And I can kind of see it from both sides, because the game has not officially been revealed, right? There's no trailer, there's no teaser, no nothing like that, no artwork. There's really nothing for Part 2 as of right now. But at the same time, the devs have already talked about the game. They've been discussing it and talking about it for 2 to 3 years now, right? They've been talking about it for quite a long time. It went into some form of development November 2019. We've been knowing that for a lot of years. So in a sort of way, it's a game that has been announced, but I don't know. It kind of just depends on what Geoff Keighley means. The thing is, people are just kind of latched onto that specific quote that's kind of making the headlines, that it's for games that have already been revealed, manage your expectations and stuff like that. But as we just read, he also said that there is going to be new game announcements and surprises at this event. It's not 100% about already revealed games. There are still going to be world premieres here. And clearly, Remake Part 2 would count as, a new game announcement or whatever, a surprise, a world premiere, whatever the case, because we haven't officially seen the game yet. And it's kind of time for it. Square Enix, for better or worse, right? They like to show their games a little too early. More than likely, the game's not coming out till late 2023, but probably 2024, if we're being realistic here. So now would be the time to talk about it, right? About a year and a half, 2 years before the game would come out, that's when they usually tease shit. They did this with 16, right? They showed 16 late 2020, and we haven't seen it until just a couple days ago. Actually, hopping back to that thing I just said about, Remake Part 2 coming out probably 2024. Yeah, I mentioned that with my, live breakdown video that we did for 16 the other day. I'm somebody that tries to give Square Enix the benefit of the doubt, because I don't personally subscribe to the theory that they have to release these big AAA games a year apart, right? They can't be within the same fiscal year. They can't release in the same year in general, which isn't entirely true, right? Because, Marvel's Avengers and Remake Part 1 came out within the same fiscal year, and in fact, the exact same year. And regardless of the reception that Marvel's Avengers received, and regardless of our thoughts on that game, it was still a $100+ million project. This was a massive undertaking for Square Enix. It's on par with any other main AAA game that you would see out there in terms of the cost of it or whatever the case. So it's not that I think it's impossible for Remake Part 2 to come out within the same year or fiscal year 16, but they're probably going to spread them out. That way they continue having a successful year, because 16 is going to make sure that their financial fiscal year is successful, which 14 is probably are going to do that by itself, right? But if they push, Remake Part 2 to sometime after April 1st of the next year of 2024, then that next fiscal year is going to be absolutely successful, because, Remake Part 2 is going to do well, obviously. Look, I understand why people are kind of bummed out by Geoff Keighley's quotes, because everybody was kind of getting hyped up for the event, and then he comes out of nowhere with this thing saying, manage your expectations. It's really just going to be mostly games that you already know about, that have already been announced or revealed. So it's kind of killing the hype for the event to some degree. I'm still looking forward to it, still hopeful, but I kind of get it. And I don't know why you would even say that anyways. If people are expecting, I know some of the rumors out there, a new Silent Hill game. That's a big one that's been going around for a while, right? So if you're somebody that's expecting Silent Hill there, and he's trying to, in a roundabout way, confirm that it's not going to be at this event, why even say anything? Why even tell people what is or isn't going to be shown there outside of stuff that's already been revealed by the devs and stuff like that? Just say nothing. Just hype up the event. Why kill the hype? It's just weird. Ultimately, my dudes, when it comes to Summer Game Fest, I just hope that there is FF7 stuff, or really just Final Fantasy stuff in general, because that could also potentially be a Final Fantasy 9 remake, if that game does in fact exist. But as long as you have something, right? Ever Crisis and whatever these other potential 25th anniversary announcements are, hopefully they're at Summer Game Fest. If they're not, again, I don't entirely know where they would be shown at within the month of June, because that's when we're supposed to get them. So it's got to be Summer Game Fest. We know Square Enix is going to be there. We also have PlayStation at this event. So it's kind of two different showcases, so to speak, that they could show stuff for Square Enix and stuff for Final Fantasy. Main thing for me right now, I'm obviously hyped for the event. I'm just hoping it's not nothing. I hope you don't go through the whole Square Enix showcase, or however it's going to be. I don't know how they're doing this. I don't know if Square Enix gets a segment, or they're just spreading shit out from all the different developers. I don't know how they're doing it. But whatever the Square Enix stuff is, I hope there's just not zero Final Fantasy, because I just don't personally care about all the other random shit that Square Enix is doing these days. I just want some FF7 Remake, some FF16, some FF9 Remake, some goddamn Tactics Remaster, or whatever the case, remake, whatever it's going to be, or whatever the hell these other unannounced FF7 projects are. That's what I'm here for. That's all I really care about, personally. One other small thing that we do got to mention, though, before we wrap up the video is that Geoff Keighley does give us a kind of estimated time for how long the event's going to be. He's quoted as saying that he expected the show to last around an hour and a half to 2 hours, but because of its live setup and many guest appearances, that he just wasn't entirely sure how long it was going to be. Now, that is a lot of time, but it's also going to be filled up with, guest appearances. I know, The Rock's going to be there, Dwayne Johnson. They're also going to have, the first reveal of, the first level of, the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 game, so that's going to take up several minutes by itself, probably. So there's going to be some lengthy segments. It's not just going to be, State of Play, where it's, reveal after reveal after reveal, or trailer after trailer. There's going to be some space in between. I have my expectations and stuff like that in check, of course, but my main hope is that we get something big revealed for Square Enix / Final Fantasy. The 9 Remake, Remake Part 2, or whatever these potential unannounced projects are, if they're a brand new spin-off game, which we kind of discussed a little bit here and there, just something big like that. That'd be pretty cool. Ever Crisis is expected. I'm looking forward to that game. We already know it exists, and it is just a mobile retelling of the FF7 story, so there's only so much hype you can have for that. I want something that's going to actually surprise me. That's pretty much going to be the video, so of course my dude's going to pass off to you guys with Geoff Keighley for some reason kind of killing a bit of the hype for this upcoming event. What are your thoughts now going into it? With him wanting us to manage our expectations, the event's mostly about games that have already been announced or revealed. What are your thoughts going into it now, specifically when it comes to Square Enix / PlayStation? Either way, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys want to say more Summer Game Fest / 25th anniversary FF7 news, whatever's going to happen in the next couple of days. Turn on notifications, follow me on Twitter, @YT. On my Discord, links for networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.